friendship in all forms. Friendship with God, friendship with yourself, friendship with others. And a group of people thought this idea of friendship was so important, so vastly important to celebrate, that the UN even made a day for it. Sunday, August 5th is International Friendship Day. So on that day, go out and celebrate with a friend. It's important, very important. And with this important friendship in mind, today our conversation is about accountability in friendship. Friendships are, of course, important. They're complex, they're multi-layered, they're juicy, and sometimes they're downright messy. And as parents, we want our children to have the right friends. As youth and as adolescents, many of us just want a friend. And as adults, many of us want good friends, dependable friends, friends who might cook us dinner or come by and hold our head up when we're sick, friends who might help us clean out the attic, friends who might come and help us move where we're moving. As politicians, we want as many influential friends as possible. And certainly, we would like to have as many fans and followers as possible as well. And here, I think we can be helped by the language of social media. According to marketing director Daniel Decker.net, the difference between a follower and a fan is this. Fans are easy to come by. You know this. All right, on social media, Mama C. They aren't committed believers. They're more like casual acquaintances. There's really no relationship built there with the fan. They might have just read something that you said and said, I'll be a fan. Or they might have downloaded something you said and I'll be a fan. Or they might have been placed on a mailing list, I'll be a fan. Or they might have just followed you back out of courtesy. Well, you're a fan of mine, and so I'll be a fan of you. Followers are something entirely different, Decker says. They can be the people who support you, who champion your cause, who are engaged with you. They are invested, and there's usually some sort of relationship that causes them to act. When you say something, when you encourage them to act, they typically act. And I would dare add to Daniel Decker, even if it's to rise up and fight back. You can follow someone, they can post, and you can rise up and fight back. You cannot agree. Fans can certainly become followers, and that's the goal, but the point is this. Don't confuse the two. And I would add, don't confuse any of that with friends. True friends. Real friends. We've been singing, I am a friend of God. I am a friend of God. I am a friend of God. God calls me friend. We've been singing, what a friend we have in Jesus. What a friend we have in Jesus. All of our sins and griefs to bear. Every last one. What does that mean? What's the measure of a friend? Having one and being one. How do you measure friendship with God and friendship with people? What characteristics are important to you? The Ad Council has many public service ad campaigns about friends. They address issues and challenges of the times. From Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent forest fires. Ads about not driving while buzzed, or texting while driving. Ads to stand against bullying. Ads about not driving drunk. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. Ads about asking someone about their mental health issues. SeizeTheAwkward.org is the name of that group. Let's take a look at a couple.
When friends don't stop friends from drinking and driving. Friends die from drinking and driving.
their mental health. First, make sure you aren't too far away. Closer. Closer. Whoa, 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 too close. Now something open-ended like, you all good?
Are you all good?
Or is everything okay?
Is everything okay?
Well done, awkward teenage actor.
First, thanks for listening.
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Have you seen any of these commercials? Maybe a couple? The Ad Council has lots of them, and they're very effective. The Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk commercial spot was responsible, or helped to be responsible, for reducing drunk driving in our country, as are many of the other ones that they address. So they're very impactful and very effective. As a true friend, I submit that accountability is something to lean into and not shy away from. Today's scripture gives us some insight as to the measure of relationship. The book of Amos is tucked neatly between the books of Joel and Obadiah, toward the end of the Hebrew scriptures, and proclaims justice with a prophetic voice. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used Amos 5:24 on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like ever-flowing streams. Today's text continues with that focus on justice flowing, and human behaviors being measured by God's divine standard. The prayer is that there will be a change of heart and a change of behavior. Here, Israel is being held accountable for its actions. Namely, the nation prospered over time, and those who were empowered lived luxurious and lavish lifestyles at the expense of the poor. That sound familiar? This was compounded by a corrupt legal system. History seems to repeat itself through time, through space, through geography, and through nationality. Accountability reaches from nations to individuals. And just as we saw in the Ad Council commercials, action and inaction has consequences. Verse 8, the Lord said to me, Amos, what do you see? A plumb line, I said. Then the Lord said to me, see, I am setting a plumb line in the middle of the people of Israel. I shall never again pass them by. God will not give a pass for unjust actions. And a plumb line, as shown here and as shown on the cover of your worship folder, is a measure. It's a builder's measure that shows how accurately straight something is built, like a building, like a level. Amos had the conviction and instruction to speak even if his message was unpopular. He had to communicate a need to return to virtuous and just behaviors, to care for each other, especially the poor. And just as Amos calls the priest and the king to account for their actions, we have a responsibility to hold our religious and political leaders accountable. We have a responsibility to work to overturn human-made constructs and to resist systems that oppress. We have a responsibility to hold to account people who may not have our best interest at heart, in personal relationships and in corporate relationships, I would add. Our call is to uphold God's outline for justice and for equity. And if we don't really know what that is, then let's sit down and have a conversation about it together. We also see in this passage that Amos responds to God's call on his life. When the priest Amaziah tries to put him down and make him shut the heck up, Amos is clear about who he serves. How about you? Is the measure of your relationship with God such that you can recognize God's call on your life? What may God be calling you to? What is the measure? I submit The accountability is not a four-letter word. God is calling us to be and to do something. I believe accountability is another layer of friendship and responsibility. In our second passage, we see David dancing before the Lord. He's dancing before the people, and the Ark of the Covenant is being relocated into Jerusalem. This signals a change in religious and political leadership and power in the nation of Israel. I feel your spirit all over me. The Ark is coming to lay out of my hands and all in my feet. Woo! David was dancing. And if you knew about an ephod, which is a priestly linen that he was wearing, that priestly linen hit about right here. So when he did this, woo! It was showing Christmas. And we were told that David's wife, Saul's daughter, Michal, apparently disapproved of David's behavior. The moment of joyful celebration seemed to be somewhat tinged by this account of shade throwing. The rejoicing David caught grief from his wife Michal when he got home. Have any of y'all caught grief from a family member when you got home for something? I see a lot of y'all smiling out there. Now, Michal has history with David, especially when her father, King Saul, was alive. David bargained for her hand in marriage. This was a political move on David's part. The price for her hand in marriage always makes me chuckle for some strange reason. The price for her hand in marriage was the foreskin of 200 enemy soldiers. Ew. That was a message there too. But let me pause right here and say, if you're wondering about what that means, every odd year we do the Bible in 90 days. And we can sprint through the Bible and you can read through those passages and understand why that's in the Bible and why the writers thought that was interesting to talk about the foreskins of 200 enemy soldiers, Philistines, and why David thought a political move was good to buy Michal's hand in marriage from King Saul. So I would encourage all of us to attend the Bible in 90 days. Okay, now back to David. David ran for his life because King Saul's intentions were eventually to murder him. And his wife Michal was given as a bride to another tribe for a peace offering. And when David came back as king, he made getting her back as wife a part of the deal. So here's Michal going back and forth. So a relationship may have been a political one of convenience with Michal. And it's very common at that time and throughout history. People being used as pawns, as peace poles, as everything like that throughout time. Now, Michal may have had her reasons for the difficulty she had with David. She may have resented being used as that political pawn. She may have resented not having the power to control her own fate as a woman of the time. She may have resented all of the things that David did, that her father did, that her brothers did, that people did in her life. We don't know. We can only surmise. But what we do know, and what we can see here in this passage, is that friction led to household conflict. She was constrained by cultural structures, her gender, the socioeconomic and political conditions of the day, and let's not forget the headstrong David. He's not an innocent bystander here either. The dancing's good. When you get home, there's accountability. Who has the power in this relationship? Things aren't always as they seem, and it is important, very important, that we test our own motives as much as possible. There are a lot of levels to this story, and I submit there are a lot of levels to our own stories too. What do you do when a friend or a family member is making your life a living misery? There's other words, but misery is the one I chose. What do we do in our own congregation when there's disagreement over worship styles and songs and our focus and our mission and cliques and the me and the me and the me, that I don't get what I want, what I want, what I want? Is it possible to hold each other accountable in ways that are loving and respectful and caring? I believe we not only can do that, I believe we are called by God to do that. Our statement of faith in the Metropolitan Community Churches starts out, we do not all believe exactly the same thing. It's impossible for us to, yet we can live together. God's beloved community can be together, I believe. So how do we stay in the conversation long enough to get to the root cause of issues and problems, challenges, from the meditative to the emotive in this sanctuary and worship, to the welcome hall, to ministry engagements, to our everyday lives? The joy and the accountability of relationships, again, is complex. I believe we're called to work it out. Work it out. Jesus can work it out when you can't pay the rent. Work it out when all your money's spent. Work it out. Jesus can pay the rent. Yeah, work it out. We are called to work it out. And hear me, church. Hear me, church. Working it out does not always mean staying together. Yet as God followers, I do believe working it out means that we can stay in communion. This communion and sharing is represented by this open table, by this baptismal font, by the gifts offered by God. We have choices to make about how we will live and how we will love each other and our world. I take to heart the songs of my favorite, of course they're songs, I take to heart the songs of my favorite musical group, Tuck and Patty. They wrote a song that was released in 1989 called Love Warrior. I think they provide amazing insight even today about the work we have in our internal and our external lives, in our relationships, and the value of not giving up. The words go like this: we give up on love so easy. Any little thing makes us turn away. Some say love is not the answer, but for those of us who love, it's time we got together. It's time we took a stand. Speak out and tell everybody, I won't give up. My path is clear. I'll take you there. Walk to the promised land with me. Some say the choice is getting smaller. It seems the battle lines are getting drawn every day. I think it's time we became love warriors. I know that if we get together, we can win this race. Come on with me and be strong. Think of all the precious babies. Think about the children. They're depending on your love. They're depending on your love to see them through. If you teach them, say that love is the only true answer. Teach your children well, and when their children look to them, they'll know exactly what to do. They will talk about love and they won't be afraid. Can we be those love warriors in our communities, in our church? Can we be a friend to each other in our work, our neighborhood, on the street? Has there been a time in a friendship where you felt like you were doing the giving, and the other person was doing the receiving? Has that ever happened to you in your relationships? Yes. A lot of witnesses here. What's that about? Is that about equity? Is that about love? Or is that about something else? Oh, only you know that. I'm just asking the question. Is it time to lovingly confront Again, I submit accountability is not a four-letter word. I take to heart the writings of Maya Angelou, and she has this to say about relationships. Never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. Nothing will work unless you do. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And when people show you who they are, believe them. Truly, wisdom for the ages. Earlier this year, a group of us completed a course called U90, Y-O-U 90, which focused on mind and body and spirit and spiritual growth. There we learned an acronym from reading Brené Brown's book, Rising Strong. She encouraged us to live big, B-I-G. This means to set boundaries. You say what is okay and what's not okay for you. Live in your integrity by holding people accountable. Be generous. Consider that people are doing the very best that they can. And if they are doing the best that they can, set boundaries and live in your integrity. Live big. Be the best friend you can be. God has entrusted you with friends and friendship right here. Sometimes that means staying and saying difficult things. In love, kindly. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm certain that we've all been on the receiving end of those difficult things said hatefully and vindictively and hurtfully. And it hurts, particularly from someone you thought was a friend. Seek God's wisdom and courage. I have provided a symbolic plumb line for each of us on the cover of your worship folder. And if you're joining us by live stream, please email me and I will send you your own plumb line. It symbolizes this measure of a plumb line. It's this right here. It's a symbol of your measurement. As we enter into our personal prayer time, I would encourage each of us to consider using this symbolic plumb line to measure the relationships that we have. Measure your relationship with God, your relationship with your loved one, your relationship with each other, your relationship with church members. Are we fans or are we followers? Are relationships serving us and are we serving them? How are we receiving God's call on each of our lives? What will we ask God for the strength and the courage to be and to do? I've been looking around, and you were here all the time. Amen.